Christmas Eve at the lake house was usually quiet, the good kind of quiet, the kind that settles into your bones and lets your mind breathe. I followed the same routine I always did when I was alone. Wiped down the counters, checked the locks twice, organized the kitchen just the way I liked it, and set aside a small batch of coffee beans for the morning. Simple, predictable, peaceful. I'd lived alone for years. Silence didn't scare me, it steadied me. But at 7:46 p.m., that piece cracked like a dropped plate. A loud, heavy thud slammed against the front door. Before I even reached the hallway, the door whipped open on its own. Ethan walked in like he owned the place, dragging two suitcases behind him. Snowmelt dripped off the wheels, leaving sloppy tracks across the floor I'd just cleaned. My son didn't look at me, didn't say hi, didn't even take a breath to explain why he was barging in on Christmas Eve. Marissa walked in right behind him. No smile, no greeting, just a quick sweep of her eyes over my living room like she was evaluating a house she might flip. Her boots left small clumps of ice on the rug. She still didn't speak. Ethan tossed his keys onto my kitchen table so hard they rattled the salt shaker. "We'll be staying here for a few days," he said. Not a question, not a request, a statement. I asked what brought them here. Ethan ignored the question completely. Marissa just moved past me and started opening my kitchen cabinets, one, then another, inspecting everything inside like she had the right. She commented under her breath about how I arranged things, not loud enough for it to be confrontational, but loud enough for me to hear. Deliberate. Ethan shrugged off his wet coat and dropped it onto the couch, leaving a damp stain on the cushion. He plopped down like he'd paid the mortgage and property taxes himself. I didn't say a word, not because I agreed with any of it, but because reacting is sometimes exactly what people want. I've learned that over a long lifetime. Silence tells me more than arguments ever could. I heated up leftovers, not because I wanted to entertain, but because I wasn't prepared for guests who assumed they were welcome. The three of us sat at the table, but they only talked to each other. Not once did they ask about me. Not once did they ask whether this was a good time. Their behavior wasn't careless. It was intentional. After dinner, I suggested they take the guest room. Ethan didn't even look up. "We need the master," he said. "The bed's better." Marissa chimed in with a sugary voice. And honestly, the smaller room is more practical for older people anyway. Older people. My house. My bed. My rules, ignored like they were optional. I didn't argue. I prepared the master bedroom for them. Quiet reveals more than shouting. Around 10 p.m., while I rinsed dishes, Ethan came downstairs again. He didn't sit. He didn't soften his tone. He spoke like a manager giving instructions to an employee. "Make coffee at 5 a.m. Set the table before then. We want breakfast early." He walked away before I could respond. Marissa followed, not even offering a good night. When the house went still again, it didn't feel like mine anymore. It felt occupied. But I wasn't angry. I was analyzing. People who stay calm notice every crack in the mask. And the first crack was clear. They didn't show up for Christmas. They showed up for something else. Something planned. As I turned off the kitchen light and headed to my room, the smaller room they pushed me into, one thought settled into my mind like a cold stone. They didn't come here as guests. They came with an agenda. The next morning, at exactly 5 a.m., Ethan walked into the kitchen not to greet me, but to inspect me. And that's when their real intentions started slipping through the seams. I woke up before Ethan's 5 a.m. order, not because he told me to, but because I always sleep lightly when other people are in the house. There's a certain shift in the air when your home is occupied by people who don't respect it. You feel it in your chest before your eyes even open. Upstairs, I heard footsteps, not the soft, sleepy kind. These were purposeful, doors opening, items being moved around, heavy thuds like someone checking drawers they had no business checking. I paused at the bottom of the stairs and listened. They were awake early because they wanted to see if I would follow their instructions like some kind of live-in help. I walked into the kitchen and made coffee the same way I had for years. Steady, simple, nothing performative. I set the table with the same quiet pace. No drama. No sign they had pushed me into anything. Staying calm wasn't just a choice. It was strategy. People reveal themselves quicker when they think you're compliant. At exactly 5, Ethan walked in. He didn't greet me. He didn't say thanks. He didn't look tired. He looked like a supervisor checking whether the task he assigned last night had been completed. His eyes scanned the table, then the coffee pot. He lifted it, swirled the liquid around, and frowned slightly. "Is this the right amount?" he asked. "Looks a little weak." He tapped the spoon against the cup like he was giving performance notes. I didn't react. His complaints weren't real. They were tests, little nudges to see how much control he could gain before I pushed back. A minute later, Marissa walked in, already performing. She headed straight to the table and rearranged the napkins I'd set down. Then she switched out the plates. Then she opened a cabinet and pulled out different cups. "These are too thin," she said softly. "Ethan prefers thicker cups in the morning." Everything she did was calculated but disguised as helpfulness. They were trying to establish ownership of the space, claiming room by room. Small dominance moves, quiet, but obvious to anyone paying attention. Ethan took a seat and adjusted the chair like the height offended him. "Breakfast?" he asked without looking at me. Marissa added, "Maybe something warm. You know how he likes his mornings." They were synchronized, one pushing, the other smoothing the edges. A two-person strategy. I made breakfast, not because they demanded it, but because keeping their rhythms predictable made them easier to read. When people think they're in charge, they get sloppy with their secrets. During the meal, Ethan asked for another plate because the eggs were too plain, and Marissa inspected a fork like she expected it to be defective. None of it was accidental. Then, halfway through the meal, Ethan leaned back, exhaled dramatically, and said, "Mom, we should talk about simplifying things." There it was. The shift. I didn't answer. I let him keep talking. "You've been handling this place alone for years. Don't you think it's too much at your age?" Marissa nodded sympathetically, doing that fake concerned head tilt she thought made her look compassionate. "We could help manage things for you," she said. "It's a lot for one person." My heartbeat didn't change. Their angle was predictable. Undermine my ability, then offer themselves as the solution. Ethan stood and started walking around the dining room, running his hand along the windowsills, tapping the floorboard, checking little things no normal person checks while eating breakfast. None of it needed checking. He wasn't observing the house. He was evaluating it. "The market's strong this winter," he commented casually. "Houses around here are selling fast." Marissa added, "And if you sold now, you wouldn't have to deal with repairs or insurance. Less stress, you know?" That was the second time the word sell slipped out of their mouths. They didn't think I noticed, but I noticed everything. I washed dishes while Ethan walked into the hallway for a phone call. He didn't lower his voice enough. "If she signs soon, we'll make the deadline," he said sharply. "We just need the house to go through before the end of the month." I dried my hands and kept wiping the counter. No tremble, no shock. Information is always more useful than emotion. Ethan came back into the room checking my face for any sign I'd overheard. I gave him nothing. That afternoon, Ethan slipped up again, this time badly. And the moment he did, the entire plan they came with finally snapped into focus. By the next morning, the fog had lifted from everything they were trying to hide. What felt like strange behavior the night before had turned into a recognizable pattern, predictable, structured, rehearsed. Ethan and Marissa weren't acting on impulse. They were following steps. And once I understood that, everything they did became painfully clear. I treated the day like any normal morning. Coffee, kitchen lights on, blinds halfway cracked so the lake could do its thing and glow through the windows. But when Ethan walked downstairs, the way he moved through my home told me everything. He didn't tread lightly like a guest. He wandered like a man searching for what belonged to him. He opened the coat closet without asking, checked the storage drawer by the stairs, peeked into the laundry room like he expected a secret to fall off a shelf. This wasn't curiosity. This was reconnaissance. Marissa kept close to me in the kitchen, playing her gentle caretaker role. She lifted a towel I folded and refolded it in front of me like she was teaching a kid how to do chores. She commented about how the dishwater wasn't hot enough, then asked whether I still knew how to use the newer settings on the washing machine. Every comment painted the same picture. that I wasn't capable anymore. The performance wasn't even subtle. Around 11 a.m., Ethan walked straight into my office without knocking. I followed quietly and saw him flipping through my filing cabinet, the one labeled property. When he noticed me, he snapped it halfway shut and forced out a weak explanation about looking for insurance papers. Insurance, he claimed. The folder he opened had the word property in bold letters. He didn't even bother to hide the lie well. I can help you look if you need something, I said lightly. He nodded, but his eyes gave him away. He thought he was getting close to something important. He wasn't. I'd already moved everything of value the night before. Later that afternoon, Marissa leaned close, her voice soft enough to be staged. You know this house must feel overwhelming for someone your age. Someone your age. There it was again. She went on about senior apartments, supportive environments, and easier living. Her tone was sweet, but her eyes were scanning my reaction like a hawk. They weren't trying to help me. They were trying to build a narrative. I couldn't manage my own home anymore. 10 minutes after that conversation, Ethan started talking about financial stability. He claimed everything was going great. His job was solid, no stress, no struggles. But half an hour later, I heard him whisper sharply to Marissa near the hallway. My hours got cut again, and we're behind. His voice was tight with panic. That alone told me more than all his fake calmness combined. But the moment that sealed everything came right after lunch. I was washing dishes when Ethan stepped into the hallway again, phone pressed to his ear. He didn't see me standing near the corner. If she signs this week, the bank will process it before the deadline, he muttered. We just need her on board or the sale won't go through. My grip didn't tighten. My breath didn't hitch. I simply kept rinsing a plate. There it was. Not speculation. Not hints. Confirmation. This wasn't about care or concern or simplifying my life. They came because they were running out of time. Ethan walked back into the kitchen and searched my face again, trying to see if he'd slip, but I didn't give him anything. Instead, I let him keep digging his own hole. That afternoon, his patience crumbled. Every request turned sharper. Every comment cut a little deeper. Every correction sounded like he was training me instead of talking to me. And that told me the most important thing. They weren't preparing to ask me to sign something. They were preparing to corner me. That meant I needed to prepare too. By evening, I had a plan and a legal advantage Ethan and Marissa had no idea I possessed. The moment I activated it, everything shifted. By the time evening rolled around, everything about Ethan and Marissa's behavior had crossed from unsettling into strategic. They weren't improvising, they were following a script. And from the way they kept glancing at each other, whispering in the hallway, and checking the time every hour, I knew the next phase of their plan was coming fast. If they were going to push, I needed something stronger than calmness. I needed leverage. I needed law. So before sunrise the next morning, while the house was still quiet, I slipped into my office and locked the door behind me. That single click felt like the first real boundary I'd set since they walked in. I pulled out my lockbox, the one with all my serious paperwork, and laid everything on the table. The deed, tax records, insurance forms, bank statements. Seeing my name, and only my name, on every page grounded me. This was my house, my life, my autonomy. Nothing had changed except their wishful thinking. Then I picked up my phone and called the one person who never panicked and never sugarcoated. Paul Whitaker, my attorney for more than a decade. He answered on the first ring. His voice was calm, steady, practical, exactly what I needed. I gave him the rundown. The unannounced arrival, the weird control tactics, the comments about my age, the concerned conversations, the pressure to sell, the whispered deadlines, the rummaging through my office, the fake, helpful tone. And of course, Ethan's slip about the bank deadline. Paul didn't interrupt. He never did. He listened like a man assembling a puzzle. When I finished, he asked a few precise questions, each one hitting directly at the heart of their behavior. Did they question your mental or physical ability? Yes. Have they attempted to set tasks or routines for you? Yes. Did Ethan physically access your private documents? He opened my property folder without my permission. Have they mentioned selling the house more than once? 3 times so far. Have you heard them discuss timing or deadlines privately? Yes. I overheard Ethan talk about needing my signature before the end of the month. When I answered the last question, Paul exhaled, not dramatically, but knowingly. This is coercion, he said plainly. A classic elder pressure pattern. And it's legally actionable. My hands didn't shake. My pulse didn't spike. I just felt clarity. Paul continued, Michigan allows one-party recording. Start documenting every conversation. Every moment they push, question your capability, or attempt to access your documents, record it. I already started, I replied. He sounded relieved. Good. Evidence collected before confrontation carries the most weight. Then he gave me the step that shifted everything. Secure the deed and all current documents in a place they can't access. Move decoy papers into the visible drawer. Let them look. The more they act, the more they incriminate themselves. It was simple, smart, blunt, exactly why I trusted him. I loaded the real documents into a metal lockbox and hid it behind a stack of blankets in my closet, a place Ethan would overlook because people digging through someone's things look fast, not thoroughly. Then I placed the old expired bills and random papers into the filing cabinet, a perfect trap. By the time I stepped back into the living room, Ethan and Marissa were whispering near the fireplace again. When they realized I was there, they shifted into their kind personas so fast they might as well have tripped over their own guilt. Paul was right. Their confidence made them careless, and carelessness was evidence. Later that night, Ethan tried checking my office again. This time, he found the decoy papers. The satisfied look on his face was priceless. He thought he was winning. He thought he was getting closer. He thought I was letting them take over. But in reality, they were documenting themselves more clearly than any lawyer ever could. By the next morning, Ethan and Marissa didn't just push, they escalated. And that escalation was exactly what I needed to lock their whole plan in place. I woke up the next morning already expecting a shift in the air. Paul had warned me that once people like Ethan and Marissa felt time slipping through their fingers, the mask would drop. Subtle manipulation would turn into structured pressure. They'd stop hinting and start pushing. And that's exactly what happened. When I stepped into the kitchen, Ethan was already there, arms crossed, foot tapping, watching the clock like he was late for a meeting. He didn't say good morning. He pointed at the counter and talked like he was checking off a list. Lunch prep needs to start early today, he said. Not a suggestion, a directive. Marissa had a little grocery list in her hands, pretending to help by walking around my kitchen like she ran the place. She opened my pantry, examined the fridge like a home inspector, then checked the dishwasher for reasons only she understood. You keeping up with your insurance payments? She asked casually. Do you remember when the property taxes are due? Have you updated your maintenance budget lately? Every question aimed at one point. I wasn't capable anymore. I didn't take the bait. Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice like he was about to deliver a heartfelt speech, but the fake emotion didn't match the impatience in his eyes. Mom living alone in a house this size isn't safe, he began. It's a lot to handle, especially at your age. There it was again. That little at your age dagger they kept slipping into conversations. I kept my tone steady. I managed just fine. Ethan wasn't satisfied with that. He wanted a weakness to latch onto. He pushed harder. Sure, but all it takes is one fall, he said. One mistake. And then what? Marissa gently touched my arm, using that soft, rehearsed tone she thought made her sound nurturing. We've been talking, and we think you should consider living with us, or maybe somewhere with support. You'd be safer. Safer. Their new favorite word. They weren't offering safety. They were offering dependency. Ethan glanced toward the living room. And downsizing would give you peace. You don't need all this space. Translation. We need this space. Around noon, they shifted again from care to urgency. Ethan leaned against the counter, crossing his arms like he was closing a business deal. The longer we drag this out, the harder it'll get, he said. You should really consider simplifying now. I watched him calmly. Why the rush? He blinked. We just want to help you before things get worse, he muttered. But Marissa slipped up first. Her eyes flicked toward Ethan. And for the first time, she looked scared of the timeline, not for me, but for themselves. I filed that away. When the conversation got too direct, Marissa pulled her usual move, nitpicking my abilities. She inspected the plate I was preparing for lunch and said, "Did you mean to season it this lightly? Maybe you're just tired." Then she suggested I take a nap. A nap. I almost laughed, but I stayed neutral. The calmer I stayed, the more they revealed. Later, Ethan wandered into the hallway again for another phone call. This time, he didn't just forget to lower his voice. He sounded desperate. "If she doesn't sign soon, we're screwed," he whispered harshly. "The deadline is the end of the month. We need the money from that sale." There it was, the truth in plain English. Not concern, not love, not family. Money. He came back into the kitchen and froze when he saw me standing there. His eyes searched my face for any hint I'd overheard. I gave him nothing. During the afternoon, his cracks widened. He started rewriting history, telling me about how much he had sacrificed for the family, how he had supported me emotionally after my husband passed. As if guilt could rewrite ownership, I nodded politely. Inside, I was documenting every word. By the end of the day, I no longer saw two worried relatives. I saw two drowning people trying to grab my house as a life raft, and they were starting to run out of oxygen. That next morning, Ethan crossed a line he couldn't take back, and his desperation finally exposed everything they were hiding. The next morning, I didn't wake up to footsteps. I woke up to noise. Not the soft shuffle of someone grabbing a glass of water, not the quiet creak of a door. These were loud, deliberate movements upstairs. Drawers opening, papers rustling, cabinets sliding open and shut, and not in their room. In mine. Paul had warned me this moment would come. When subtle pressure fails, he said, they'll escalate into direct intrusion. Well, escalation had officially arrived. I walked into the hallway without rushing. Slow, even steps, calm on the outside, but fully alert inside. At the top of the stairs, Marissa stood guard like a lookout posted at the entrance of a cave. Her posture was stiff, her smile was too bright. Her eyes kept darting behind her, toward my office. "Good morning," she chirped, voice thin as tissue paper. "I was just, wondering what you wanted for breakfast." Right, at 6:20 a.m., outside my office door, with Ethan rifling through my personal papers like a raccoon in a dumpster. I didn't say anything, didn't accuse, didn't confront. Silence is scarier than shouting, and they knew it. Ethan walked out of my office at that exact moment, holding a stack of papers that clearly weren't the ones he was hoping for. The decoy pile Paul told me to place there, old utility bills, expired statements, nothing important. He rifled through them like he'd struck gold. "Mom," he said, shaking his head with manufactured disappointment, "these papers are all over the place, totally disorganized." He held them out like proof of some failure he desperately wanted me to confess to. "They're old bills," I replied calmly. That answer irritated him. He wanted shame. He wanted guilt. He wanted vulnerability. He got none of it. Marissa quickly stepped in with her gentle act voice. "We just want to help you sort things," she said. "You keep everything locked away. It worries us." Locked away meant protected. Protected meant not theirs. That's what actually worried them. I looked straight at Ethan. "If you're looking for something, you can ask." He stiffened. "We're just helping." I nodded once. "All right." That single word dropped him deeper into the illusion that I still didn't suspect anything. People who think they're winning get reckless, and reckless people leave evidence. Later, after lunch, I tested something Paul taught me, a controlled question meant to shake the foundation of a manipulator's story. Over soup and sandwiches, I casually set my napkin down and asked, "What if I don't want to sell the house?" Silence dropped like a brick on the table. Ethan froze mid-chew. Marissa blinked so fast, I thought she might pass out. Then Ethan spoke, but not with the fake calm he'd rehearsed. "Mom, that would make things harder for everyone." Everyone. Not me. Everyone. Marissa rushed to patch the leak. "We're just trying to do what's best for you. You can't manage this place alone forever." I pressed gently. "What's the urgency then?" Ethan's answer came too fast, too sharp. Because it's the right time, he snapped. Marissa shot him a warning look. He'd exposed the timing again. And then he slipped even further. We don't have much time, he blurted. There it was, the truth cracking open again, clearer than ever. I leaned back and simply said, I need time to think. Ethan's jaw tightened. That's the problem. We don't have time. The panic in his voice confirmed everything Paul and I already knew. That afternoon, I moved the real deed and legal documents into a locked metal box deep behind blankets in my closet, exactly where desperate people in a hurry wouldn't think to look. That evening, Ethan cornered me in the hallway. Dragging this out is making everything worse, he said quietly, voice trembling with frustration. You're being unreasonable. I looked him dead in the eyes. I said I need time. He exhaled sharply, not frustration anymore, but fear. Fear because he knew time was exactly what he didn't have. By bedtime, I could feel the storm brewing. Not slowly, not subtly, fast. They were done hinting, done nudging, done pretending. They were about to go all in, and the next move would reveal everything they'd tried so hard to hide. That night, I realized Ethan and Marissa weren't preparing to convince me anymore. They were preparing to corner me. And the next morning, they walked straight into the legal trap they didn't even know I'd set. I woke up the next morning already knowing what the day would bring. Ethan and Marissa weren't improvising anymore. They were cornered, and cornered people make bold, messy moves. I could hear them downstairs before I even made it to the hallway. Not the usual clatter of breakfast or light footsteps. Their movements were careful, too careful. Quiet, whispered, controlled. The kind of quiet people use when they're practicing a script. I walked into the kitchen and immediately noticed something off. The coffee pot was already brewing. Now, let me be clear. They hadn't made coffee for me once since they arrived. Not once. Every day, it had been orders, critiques, corrections. But this morning, smiles, soft voices. Coffee poured into my favorite mug. The stage was set. Marissa approached with a sweetness so forced it practically squeaked. Morning. We thought we'd help you start the day relaxed. Sure, because nothing says relax like two people who spent the week trying to bulldoze your autonomy. Ethan watched me with a fixed expression, too intense, too observant. He wasn't checking on me. He was evaluating whether I was in the right emotional state for whatever trap they had prepared. I sat at the dining table and let the silence hang. It made them uncomfortable. Good. Finally, Marissa spoke, easing into the conversation like she had practiced it in the mirror. We wanted to revisit our talk from last night, she said softly, about making things easier for you. Ethan chimed in almost immediately. It's the perfect time to get things sorted, before the weather gets worse, before the market shifts. They were practically vibrating with urgency. So I gave them exactly what they needed to take the next step. If there's something you want me to look at, I said calmly, bring it over. That was the green light they'd been waiting for. Ethan shot Marissa a quick look and left the room. A minute later, he returned with a folder, thick enough to be serious, thin enough to be rust. He placed it on the table like a salesman presenting the deluxe package. This will help manage everything, he started, flipping it open. It just gives us permission to take care of the property. Simple stuff. He pushed the pen toward me. My pulse didn't change. I didn't touch the folder. I didn't touch the pen. I just watched. He flipped pages too quickly for anyone to read. This part just allows us to handle decisions while you relax, he said. Temporary. Just until things are organized. Temporary. The bait. I scanned the text. Not temporary at all. It gave Ethan full authority to sell the house without my presence, without my consent. Marissa leaned in with her sugary voice. You trust us. We just want what's best for you. I kept my own voice steady. What happens to the house if I sign? Ethan answered too fast. We'll handle the sale. You won't need to worry about it. Marissa froze. Her eyes flicked toward him like she'd just watched someone drop a secret on the floor. I turned another page. Why is this dated for today? Ethan swallowed. Because the timing matters. We need to process this quickly. There it was again, the urgency he couldn't hide. I asked one more question. Let me read it thoroughly. His mask cracked. It's straightforward. No need to drag it out. He hovered over me like he thought pressure would make me crumble. Then he slipped badly. We just need this done so we can catch up on what we owe. Marissa grabbed his arm. He had said too much. He tried to backpedal. I mean, catch up on planning, not finances. But the damage was done. Every word recorded, every phrase captured. I closed the folder gently. Before Ethan could push the pen toward me again, a knock echoed through the house. Firm, measured, official. Ethan jumped. Marissa went pale. I stood, walked to the front door, and opened it. Deputy Collins stood on the porch, calm, solid, and right on time. "Morning, ma'am," he said. "Thought I'd check in." I stepped aside. He walked in, saw the folder on the table, and raised an eyebrow. "Looks like a pretty serious document for breakfast hour." Ethan's face drained. And just like that, the trap snapped shut. With Collins inside and the contract exposed, Ethan and Marissa's whole plan unraveled faster than they could lie. But what came next changed everything permanently. Deputy Collins didn't rush. He didn't bark orders. He just stood there in my living room like a brick wall with a badge, taking in the scene, the folder, the pen, Ethan's clenched jaw, Marissa's stiff smile. "Morning," he said, nodding politely. "You folks seemed a little tense." Tense was an understatement. Ethan looked like someone had yanked the floor out from under him. Marissa was frozen mid-performance, still trying to decide whether to smile or flee. I stayed calm. Collins walked over to the table and gestured at the stack of papers. "Mind if I take a look?" Ethan stepped forward fast, too fast. "It's private," he snapped. "Family stuff." Collins raised one eyebrow. "Family stuff that requires signatures, witnesses, and a notary stamp?" he asked, tapping the unattached notary page. Ethan's face flushed. Marissa opened her mouth to speak, but Collins held up a hand. "Ma'am, let's start simple. Did you bring these documents into the house?" She hesitated, eyes flicking toward me, then toward Ethan. I mean, we just wanted to help organize her affairs." "Uh-huh," Collins replied, not believing a syllable. He flipped through the pages, expression tightening with every line he skimmed. "This isn't organizing," he said finally. "This is a property transfer authorization, and not a temporary one." Marissa looked like someone had cut her strings. Ethan stepped into Collins' space, voice rising. "It's none of your business." Collins didn't even blink. "Actually, it becomes my business when someone over 60 reports coercion, unusual pressure, and possible financial exploitation." Ethan went silent. Marissa let out a weak laugh. "Oh, come on. Coercion. We're just trying to help her." Collins turned to me. "Do you feel pressured, ma'am?" I nodded once. "Yes." The room shifted instantly, like oxygen had snapped back into it. Ethan's eyes widened. "Mom, what are you doing?" I didn't raise my voice, didn't argue, didn't justify. "I'm telling the truth," I said simply. Collins took a slow step toward Ethan and Marissa. "Here's how this is gonna go," he said. "You two are going to step aside while I take your statements separately. And nobody, I mean nobody, is going to touch another paper in this house." Ethan's mouth twisted with panic. "You're blowing this out of proportion. We're trying to help her. She doesn't understand what she's doing." Collins cut him off. "And that right there," he said, "is exactly what financial predators say before a court hearing." Marissa gasped. "Predators? That's outrageous." "Then it'll be real easy," Collins replied, "to answer a few questions." Ethan ran a hand through his hair, pacing, muttering under his breath. "This is unreal. She set us up." "No, I thought." "You set yourselves up. I just stopped protecting you from the consequences." Collins pulled out his tablet. "Let's start with whose idea this was," he said, "and why it had to be done before the end of the month." Silence. Marissa stared at the floor. Ethan stared at me, betrayal and fear tangled in his expression, but guilt, not a trace. While Collins questioned them, I stepped into the kitchen and called Paul. "It's happening," I said. He didn't sound surprised. "I'll meet Collins at the station." "You did exactly what you needed to do. And for the record, you protected yourself flawlessly." When I returned to the living room, Collins was escorting Ethan and Marissa toward the door. "No charges yet," he told me softly. But after reviewing this paperwork with your attorney, there very well could be. They won't be allowed back inside without your consent. Ethan stopped at the doorway, eyes desperate, voice cracking. Mom, please. We needed help. You don't understand. I held up a hand. I understand more than you think. Marissa whispered. We just wanted a chance. We're drowning. I met her eyes. So you tried to take my home. She didn't argue. She didn't defend herself. She just cried quietly, the real kind this time. Collins guided them outside. The door closed behind them with a soft, satisfying click. The house fell silent, truly silent, the kind of peace that belongs to you and no one else. I walked through each room slowly, breathing in the stillness they had disturbed. This was my home, my sanctuary, my life, and I had reclaimed every inch of it. When I reached the kitchen table again, the contract folder still sat there. I picked it up, slid it into a drawer, and locked it. Evidence. Nothing more. Outside, a car engine started, then faded, and for the first time in days, the house felt like mine again. I poured myself a fresh cup of coffee, sat by the window, and let the lake settle my mind. Whatever came next, legal action, distance, rebuilding, I could handle it. Because the people who tried to take control of my life had underestimated the one thing they never bothered to understand. I wasn't alone. I wasn't confused. And I wasn't for sale.